You say he could fight any Trump supporter?
Yeah, he says he kicked, and they're scared of him because he could fix a truck. Like they're threatened by his masculinity. I know how to fix a truck. That's what he said. I'm like, do you? I bet you don't.
The lady doth protest too much.
I bet you don't.
I fear.
I bet if I bring a broken truck to you and a bag of tools, you're f***ed.
That was the guy that wants to be your vice president, calling the #1 entrepreneur in America that gay guy. You understand how weird that is? You just call him that gay guy?
That gay guy. You've never said that. You've never said that.
Adam, how do you feel about that gay guy? Comment at Tim.
Joe Rogan and Patrick Bet-David joined forces for a ruthless takedown of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, leaving his credibility in ruins. With Rogan's unfiltered intensity and Patrick's sharp analysis, they tore through Walz's track record, painting him as the master of hollow slogans and failed policies. From rising crime to economic chokeholds, nothing was off limits. This wasn't just criticism, it was a political wrecking ball. If leadership were a competition, Walz just suffered a defeat louder than a fireworks finale.
Video?
No.
This is what people love about Donald Trump. The fact that he would say this.
But unfortunately, Governor Walz isn't here himself, but don't worry, he'll say that he was. He's going to say he was. I used to think the Democrats were crazy for saying that men have, period. But then I met Tim Walz.
Because they're not ready for the common sense questions.
Yeah.
They're not ready for the simple questions. And when he just sat there when he had no answer, and then he didn't understand the question, and then he said, what do you want me to say? And I'm like, oh my God, you're never going to be president. You will not be running in 2028. You're done.
Well, I don't know whether, it was because of that question or not, if he would ever be president, because the way he handled himself in the debate with J.D. Vance, that was that's probably the worst debate performance I've ever seen, aside from Joe Biden's debate with the president.
Joe Rogan didn't just criticize Tim Walz. He unleashed a verbal smackdown that made MMA look like a tea party. Fueled by frustration and sharp wit, Rogan came in swinging with logic, humor, and disbelief, taking aim at a leader he sees as all style, no substance. He wasn't just commenting. He was the fighter, the ref, and the crowd all in one, while Walz looked like the poor guy who stumbled into the octagon thinking it was a yoga class. Rogan zeroed in on the chaos of Walz's leadership, mocking his govern-by-gut approach in press conference politics, like someone choosing dinner with a spin-the-wheel app. He shredded Walz's pandemic response, from lockdowns tighter than a bank vault to reopening rules that felt more like dares than guidelines. It was less critique and more political carnage.
Getting scary close to people justifying totalitarian measures.
I think we need to push back on this.
Tim Walz in the campaign trail was literally saying free speech doesn't include hate speech and misinformation.
There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
Hey man, you. Because everything that we called misinformation just a few years ago, it's on the front page of the New York Times now that we were lied to.
Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but it's only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time. They used to teach gun safety. I'm of an age where my shotgun was in my car so I could pheasant hunt after football practice.
Okay, so that was one of the ones that
That's like I think he misspoke, but to say that I'm friends with school shooters, like we hang out on the weekends. I tell them not
friends with a
school shooter.
So,
yeah.
According to Rogan, Walz handled COVID-19 restrictions like someone blindly fumbling through an escape room while reading old science magazines. There was no consistency, no real science, and certainly no logic, just a constant flow of confusion, packaged and sold as caution.
play this. The audience is deeply concerned about your question. Go ahead, Rob.
What is a woman? What is a woman is the question.
I'm not sure I understand the question here.
Well, that.
What do you want me to say? This is.
I want you to say that a woman like me is an adult human female, that men can't become women. You guys are the party of violence, and you're the party erasing women. You don't respect us. You're a bigot. You're a misogynist. You're a sexist. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Rogan tore into the hypocrisy. Big box stores stayed wide open, while small businesses were crushed under layers of red tape. He joked that it felt like Walz was conducting a social experiment to see how fast he could wipe out small business morale, all while keeping places selling inflatable pools and bargain bin socks fully operational. Rogan compared Walz's decision-making to a Magic 8 ball, but with even less personality. And when pressed for real answers, Walz would launch into a speech so dry it could shatter glass.
Tim Walz.
I know I'm doing something right when the Fox News crowd is all pitching at me like crazy. Like, I'm loving it.
That guy was almost the vice president of the United States.
Elon Musk was crying last week. Tim is being mean to me, you know, like, yeah.
I'm sure you've seen that thing where it shows Obama saying, I need a vice president that's dumber than me.
He may or may not have cognitive decline problems at his age, but at her age, she's just...
Then Rogan ripped into Walz's favorite move, hiding behind the so-called experts. Instead of leading, Walz handed off decisions to people who probably needed someone double-checking their decisions. Rogan mocked how Walz would treat every crisis like a chance to form a committee, host a virtual roundtable, or drop a slick video that said absolutely nothing. It wasn't leadership, it was political theater, starring a guy who couldn't act and didn't know his lines. When it came to health mandates, Rogan didn't hold back. He compared Walz's rules to a CrossFit coach with a personality disorder, chaotic, exhausting, and borderline dangerous. You could hit the casino, but not the gym. Sit down inside a fast food joint with strangers? No problem. But open your yoga studio? Out of the question. According to Rogan, Walz didn't follow science. He followed a Pinterest board of bad ideas, wrapped in fear and buried under layers of bureaucratic nonsense.
She's trying to make sense of her argument. Are you buying her argument? Go ahead, Rob.
And if kids are hungry in school, what that does to brain and learning, you're not going to learn to read. So if you're talking about learning to read and closing gaps, then you better take away the barriers for that. If that's tampons, then that's tampons.
Play that one more time. Like,
It's not even registering.
Listen, I have 4 kids, and they've made some arguments that they try to really
tried to do my homework.
Stretch and spin. Is there a greater spin job than Rob? Play that one more time, by the way. It's a little painful.
But the pandemic was just the beginning. Rogan dove headfirst into Minnesota's education collapse under Walz. Once a system known for high standards, it spiraled into chaos. Learning loss skyrocketed. Parents were left in the dark, and students spent more time glued to screens than engaged in actual instruction. Rogan said Walz ran the education system like it was in beta mode. Every year brought new slogans, fresh initiatives, and even less real learning. It was like trying to fix a broken engine by slapping on a new paint job and pretending the smoke wasn't pouring out. Then came crime, and Rogan didn't hold back. He compared Minnesota's crime surge to a bad movie sequel, loud, predictable, and entirely avoidable. Law enforcement was either ignored or villainized, and Walz's go-to response? Say something vague, act mildly concerned, and jump to the next photo op. Rogan joked that Walz could make a hostage negotiation sound like an HR meeting. Zero urgency, zero accountability, and somehow zero results. Then it was Patrick Bet-David's turn. No stage lights, no theatrics, just cold, calculated precision. Patrick didn't swing wild. He came in with data, focus, and a grin that said, asterisk, I've done the math, and you're the problem. Asterisk, he nailed Walz for his lack of strategy and vision, painting a picture of a leader treating the job like a part-time gig with no consequences. When pressure mounts, Patrick said, Walz vanishes behind a wall of buzzwords, praying people forget he's the one holding the fire extinguisher while everything burns.
If that Tim Walz, if that guy got into power, like if Kamala died and Tim Walz, Tampon Tim, was our fucking president, you know how crazy this country would be? That weirdo who puts tampons in the boys' room, and what about our joy? Like he's a complete pathological liar, like a complete liar. Lied about being in Tiananmen Square, lied about being a fucking